Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. You are tuned into the Makeshift Managers Podcast. As you can see on your screen and hear from my voice, Austin is not here because he's the one that usually does our cold opens. So, hey, it's Devin. And to my side, because, directions are pointless whenever you're on a computer screen, we have our friend of the show, Justin Bruni at TITTHJB. Justin, how are you doing?
Doing good, sir. Doing good. Excited to talk some football after a wild NFL week one.
Yeah, no, week one usually has a lot of surprises in store, but this one was just kind of odd in general. I feel like a lot of players had a lot to prove coming into this season, especially on the individual plane. But with all the movement with head coaches and just front offices kind of scurrying to rebuild teams or refortify groups of positions, it's probably the most exciting week one that I've prepared for in the last couple of years. As a Chargers fan, obviously, it's like we had one of the biggest off seasons the NFL had. But yeah, no. Full slate of games. Obviously, we can't get into Denver versus Seattle. Take that as you will. But starting things out, Justin, what were your thoughts on Bills-Rams on Thursday night?
Man, Sean McVay just didn't show up. Play calling, I felt, was pretty vanilla to start. You had the Bills, really start off hot and heavy. The passing offense was there. Seemed like they had all of their scripted plays like cooked and ready to go. And McVay came up and just put some sloppy Joe on the table. Like I really didn't get it. He was trying to put the ball back into the ground after the Bills had really attacked vertically and try to maybe take back some clock and rest his defense and whatnot. Didn't work out. I felt like the Bills had that one won well before it even started. It felt like, and this is someone who is picking the Rams, so I didn't feel great about it. Cam Akers, obviously that situation wasn't ideal, but from what I've heard, it didn't seem like he was actually going to be used that night. Kyrene Williams, was injured on the first play on the kickoff return, and he was supposed to take the majority of the secondary touches behind Darrell Henderson. There was really no script or plan for Akers to be in the lineup, so I think that's maybe why we got what we got from him this week. I know a lot of fantasy owners were upset about that. The Bills were the Bills. They were everything that we thought they would be. They delivered. You saw flashes of the secondary receivers and McKenzie and Gabe Davis. Stephon Diggs. James Cook, a little bit underwhelming. It felt like, he got the fumble, got into the doghouse. He was sent away for the day. Devin Singletary, kind of showed up. Zach Moss got some touches. So a lot of good takeaways from the Bills out of week one. They're going to be a tough team to beat and a tough team to cover. Going over to the Rams, man, you need more than just Cooper Kupp, to win the game. I'm sorry, and there was a lot of film out there on Allen Robinson being wide open. Tyler Higbee, I think in that game had, double-digit targets. So, definitely some reworkings that have to happen on that side of things. And most importantly, the offensive line. Man, the offensive line for the Rams was awful. Stafford on his back 7 times. Week one, inexcusable, can't do it. Don't care if you have an experience. If it's, if you don't have the right group down there, you just got to get it going to protect your quarterback. That's where it's all going to start for them.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was surprised with the outcome for the most part. I myself was picking the Bills from the moment that this was the kickoff game for the NFL. I just felt, especially like Rams-Bengals, they both had crazy seasons last season where they had runs that not everybody predicted. The Rams exercised their demons in the postseason against the Kyle Shanahan-led San Francisco 49ers, and the Rams were spent. They played longer than any other team aside from Cincinnati, and it kind of showed. LA downgraded in a lot of ways over the offseason. Adding Allen Robinson on paper, I thought was just a lateral move when losing Odell Beckham Jr., if they are even thinking of bringing him back whenever he's healthy due to his ACL tear in the Super Bowl. They lost Andrew Whitworth, who was their franchise left tackle for so many years. And offensive line is extremely important, especially whenever you have a quarterback like Matthew Stafford, who is a pocket presence kind of guy that can't really get outside of the pocket and make things happen whenever plays break down. This was a team that was insanely talented, but they pushed every chip in last year. And whenever you push in all of the chips, you are going to have to constantly retool. And whenever you have minimal draft capital, i.e. first-round draft picks, and the Rams have been extremely good about drafting in the later rounds and getting competent NFL talent out of those later rounds. But if the Rams have any issues with health this year, it's going to be incredibly difficult for them to compete at the top tier, especially against teams in the AFC. The Bills came out and they did what we expected them to do, at least in my opinion. The Bills were the hottest team in football aside from Cincinnati whenever they came into Arrowhead and lost to the Chiefs. Luck of the draw, I guess, for Kansas City last season because everyone was saying if Josh Allen got the ball, they would have won the game, which it's apples to oranges. But yeah, the Bills came out. Josh Allen threw 2 picks, but it didn't seem to matter. This Buffalo defense is the real deal. And the scariest thing for me, looking at the landscape of the AFC, besides the AFC East not being the strongest division for the Bills to play against for the entirety of this year, this is a defense that did not blitz once in terms of personnel groupings, and they recorded 7 sacks on Stafford. And we're also looking at the fact that they are without Tre'Davious White. They have nowhere to go but up from here. If this is how this defense looks whenever they aren't sending like the full house and their top corner isn't on the field, Buffalo is insanely scary. Do I think the Rams are cooked? Not in the slightest. I think the Rams are going to figure it out. Anyone that's concerned about Cam Akers, he tore his Achilles less than like a year and a half ago. It's a tremendous feat of physical athleticism that he made it back for the playoff run last year. This is a team that is going to have to get extremely creative, especially if Stafford's elbow is going to be giving them troubles. Cooper Kupp is still that guy. If Cooper Kupp's on the field, they should be able to compete with most teams in the NFC. And even at their worst right now, they shouldn't be outside of a wild card spot with how the NFC is shaping up. It was just perfect storm. Hot team in Buffalo, team that was bound to have a bit of regression in Los Angeles. So it's kind of just the perfect storm. I'm not going to fault LA too much for the week 1 matchup. They were bound to have a letdown at some point. So we'll see how it pans out in week 2, but kudos to the Bills.
Their defense is still going to be really good. You know, you got Aaron Donald, Bobby Wagner, Jalen Ramsey. You got like elite playmakers at every level. They're going to get better matchups. They just went up against, top 2 team in the NFL. Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, precisely. And for everyone that's talking about Jalen Ramsey giving up huge plays and blowing coverages, it is what it is. If you're one of the best corners in football, eventually you're going to get exposed. The amount
you got to wear it, you got to wear it when you take your licks.
And if there's anyone that I expect to bounce back from a bad game, it's arguably Jalen Ramsey. He's got the reputation.
And Aaron Donald, I'll say. Aaron Donald, I would imagine will be a monster next week. So
100%. I expect him to have 3 helmets by halftime. But speaking of halftime, the Detroit Lions made a game of it to start it out. I thought the Lions were going to run away with it at a certain point. But, man, this Philadelphia team looks really good. Don't you think, Justin?
Yeah, the Eagles looked great. I mean, they had this one in win mode for most of the game. And then, I don't know, they just started slipping. Maybe it was just, their feelings of like it being garbage time. I'm not sure. Really loved what they did on the ground still, but I'm not impressed with Jalen Hurts as a deep ball thrower. He did make a couple of nice throws downfield, but I mean, dude, you got to throw touchdowns. Like, 1 total touchdown. People are talking about this guy being the best quarterback in football this season. Well, you're about 4 touchdowns behind Pat Mahomes. I'm sorry, bud. Yeah. He did have the 1 rushing touchdown, 90 rushing yards, very safe floor there for him going forward. You got to like what he's doing. The rest of the team just kind of followed tune. Loved what I saw out of Antonio Brown, AJB. And Devonta Smith laid a goose egg. He'll probably get a little bit better. Dallas Goedert probably will be better. The running backs, you got to love them. They showed up. Miles Sanders had a good game. Gainwell found the end zone. Well, they all found the end zone, including Hunt and Jalen Hurts, and Boston Scott, yeah.
Full-on quartet from the Eagles rushing attack. This is what people, I think, were anticipating because for me, the Jalen Hurts story will always kind of be fantasy related. Jalen Hurts is like the perfect fantasy football quarterback. In applicable football in the NFL, he's not my first choice by any means. He is in this tier of I would lump him with your players like your Mac Joneses, Trevor Lawrence's, even like because he's the class of 2020, correct? He came in with Burrow, Herbert, Hurts, and then Tua as well. I forget Tua sometimes. So does half of Miami. Talking to I forget his name. Damn it. He's working in Pittsburgh. You know him. Brian Flores. Brian Flores forgot about Tua. We all did. But I digress. Jalen Hurts, this is the perfect scenario for him. I don't know if he's the franchise guy in Philadelphia. He's good enough to silence any Gardner Minshew hysteria. Detroit came out to play. Dan Campbell, if you watched Hard Knocks this offseason, you wanted to run through a wall at about the 2nd episode. So I'm not surprised that Detroit came out so electrically to play this game. And the fact that they didn't give up in that 4th quarter, putting up 14 points, is a great sign. While the NFC is lacking this top end, like upper echelon talent comparatively to the AFC, I think the middle of the NFC is better than it's been in a couple of years. I think you're going to have a lot of teams that can beat anybody any given day, aside from your Tampas. The Niners, whenever they get into full strength, and possibly the Rams. And Minnesota looks monstrous. But you have a lot of very competent teams in the NFC this year. A.J. Brown has translated to the Eagles immediately. The big thing with him in Tennessee was always the volume. And if somebody could actually get him the ball 10 times a game, and if this is what A.J. Brown is going to be signing up for in Philadelphia, I'm here for it. This Eagles defense has improved over the offseason. They got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson about like 2 weeks ago for like a pack of peanuts from New Orleans. He wants a big-time deal, and if he plays well in this Eagles defense and they're able to – well, to be fair, week one, giving up 35 points is less than ideal, but right. I do think we do have to give credit to this Detroit offense. I think they are really underrated in the grand scheme of it. They added a lot of talent in the offseason, and guys like DJ Chark, who, while whenever he's healthy, especially in Jacksonville, he was putting up very decent seasons. The defense did the best they could. I'm not in love with a lot of the pieces on this defense. I think Jeff Okudah has to figure it out within the next 8 weeks, or else I don't know what they do with him. But
their secondary in totality is just really
terrible.
Bad. You know,
it's like they have very bad.
They have a pretty good defensive line, you know, adding in Aiden Hutchinson, but he was still running all over the place. Looked like he was, you know, running with his head cut off. But they do have a good, up front group on defense, but their secondary is brutal. And that's what I was concerned about with, like, what I mentioned with Jalen Hurts earlier, is like, you didn't throw a touchdown in that game. I mean, you were moving the ball down the field, but like,
yeah,
you you got to finish in the red zone, you know, when you get in the playoffs and you're, games on the line, et cetera. So yeah, didn't really love what I saw out of either side. There was a lot of positives though from both teams. Detroit offense is going to be fun. They probably win that game if Jared Goff doesn't start off 3 for 9. He finished the game really well, but he started just so slow, and you lose that game by 3 points. Like, it's tough.
Yeah, it's difficult for Detroit losing their first game of the season. I expect a lot of games like this to kind of not go Detroit's way.
Right.
But all in all, I loved the matchup. I think while we didn't learn a whole lot, I think this is how people expected it to go, maybe a little bit heavier in the side of Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. The sky's the limit for both of these teams offensively in terms of the talent that they do have. I think it's reassuring for Philadelphia that they can go into Detroit, a team that is massively improved over the last couple of seasons, and pull out a win whenever Jalen Hurts doesn't throw a touchdown. I think that is going to be highlighted throughout the season by Nick Sirianni's rushing attack. That was one of the best in the NFL last season. So even if Hurts doesn't take this next step to become the next Kyler Murray or even a Lamar Jackson, it's not going to be as amplified if this rushing attack can be as good as it was last year, paired with that defense. Last thing about this game for me, I love DeAndre Swift. That is all. Speaking of loving things, if you are a fan of rainy days and summer showers, you must be a Bears fan, because the Niners came into Soldier Field and it was ugly. I had a lineup where I was about to start Trey Lance in fantasy, and I was talking with Austin, and he was like, you should Google the Mud Bowl from like 2 years ago. Look at Jimmy's stats. And I was like, damn it, Kirk, you're starting, because it's a 2 QB league. And I was like, I have Mahomes, but I need to hedge this bet.
Damn.
There wasn't a whole lot to be happy about unless you were a Bears fan. Justin, lead off. Yeah. Congratulations, Justin Fields. We
didn't lose. We didn't lose, and we covered the 7. Let's go. Good teams win. Great teams cover. Go Bears. That's what I'm talking about, baby. Although, to be fair, like everybody at my network all picked the Bears to cover 7 points. So that was a really bad number for the books to lay here. A lot of ups and downs in this game, especially for the Bears. It just felt like they were a team that was just never ready to lose that game. Every time they gave up a big play, they would respond with a big play on defense. Whenever they would end a drive slowly on offense, 3 and out, they would come back and make more plays and progress. Like, we were seeing them get better as the Bears throughout the entire game. We watched the 49ers get worse throughout the entire game, right? Yeah. They started off really well with the run game. Lance was throwing the ball well to start the game, and then everything just started to fade away, and it felt like once they got hit in the face, there goes the game plan, right? Like, it was just like we had this really scripted offense that we were going to run here and kind of keep things safe, especially in the rain, and keep things nice and neat and clean. Yeah, and then the Bears got mud on your jersey. You know what I mean? Like the defense made great plays. Wasn't overly impressed with Fields, but he made plays when he needed to. Would have really liked to see him do more with his legs. I think he had 11 attempts for 28 rushing yards, something like that. Would have liked to see more. Very concerned about David Montgomery, 17 for 26 on the ground. Did lead the team with 3 receptions. I don't know what that says about the receivers. We'll get to Mooney and Kmet here in a second, but Montgomery is going to take his licks this season just because Herbert, played so well this week. He was a highly anticipated player in the offseason. Everyone was saying, he's ready to take his job. Montgomery doesn't fit the system, etc. Montgomery still got used a lot, so I'm not really that worried about it. I think that's kind of an overreaction that like Herbert's going to come in and take his job. Kmet and Mooney, what? Even in the rain, even in the mud bowl, just design something, some design play. But honestly, it was all the undesigned plays that gave the Bears all their offense. That Dante Pettis play was just a completely broken play. Fields rolled out to the other side of the field like it was Madden, and then just like threw a duck like 40 yards to the right. Like what is that? Walk-in touchdown. I'll take it every day. Kwame St. Brown, similar thing. Like the Bears are going to be gritty this season. They are going to be better than people anticipated. Don't expect, this win to be just because of weather and mud and rain and stuff like that. Like they showed up against a very prepared and well-equipped 49ers team. Elijah Mitchell going to be missing time for the 49ers. I have shares of him everywhere in fantasy. Absolutely hating it. Interesting to see what's going to happen there. Is Trey Lance going to run the ball more? Is Jeff Wilson going to be included? Jordan Mason, Tyrion Davis-Price, where's the ball going to go there? Feel like it's going to be pretty balanced. And, are we going to continue to see Debo at running back? Was that a rain thing? Was that a weather calculation? Or is that going to be actually a part of the game script? I'll say so until he gets his bonuses, because he has some built-in bonuses for those things. If he gets so many rushing yards, attempts, or touchdowns, once he gets his money, they'll probably be like, all right, we're cool. We're fine. Yeah. We don't need to do this anymore.
Because the funniest part was I had some yard work I had to do yesterday. So I watched about the first quarter and a half of the Niners and Bears game. And so I went outside to go move tree limbs. And whenever I got back inside, the Chicago Bears had won the game. And I said, that's not what I left off on.
10-0
the calendars.
10-0 deficit, baby.
It's the Dante Pettis revenge game. We love to see it. Went from the doghouse to bear down. This game was ugly, to say the least. Elijah Mitchell going down is terrible for them. Debo averaged 6.5 yards per carry. You put the ball in Debo's hands, good things are going to happen.
And Mitchell had 6.8 before he got hurt.
Yeah. One of the most efficient rushing attacks in football. I'm not super excited with Jeff Wilson averaging 2.4 per carry. I expect Debo to get a lot of touches. I don't care if they are through the air or on the ground. This team is going to need him. And that's going to be on the ground. That's the thing that was interesting about the Bears and your point of Cole Kmet and Darnell Mooney not getting touches. I started Cole Kmet at tight end in the league this week, and it's you have to get the ball to your top playmakers. It's just the way that the sport works. I get it. Hot hand works most of the time, but you should be able to scheme your players into touches. It's what makes Debo Samuel so special. It's what makes Cooper Kupp so special. They are extremely talented and can get open at any point, but the team schemes for them. The touches are orchestrated around them for the offense. And while 1-0 looks good on this Bears sheet, it is a long road for the rest of the season. I'm not going to write off the Niners by any stretch of the imagination. This is the worst case scenario for the start of their season. It could have been worse. Debo or Trey could have went down. Elijah Mitchell going down really hurts, but they do have
Jimmy Garoppolo waiting in the wings.
I get that, but I don't want to see Trey Lance get lumped into the whole Tua Tagovailoa thing whenever you have a rookie scale quarterback and a roster that is effectively win now. The Niners have one of the most win now rosters currently. So there are definitive windows with quarterbacks. I just feel like if you're not maximizing your return on these rookie scale deals, it can hurt you in the long run. Mahomes getting his first Super Bowl on the rookie scale deal makes it even more palatable to give him the quarter or the $500 million. It just makes sense.
That's why he got the $500 million.
Exactly. And it's why
he already started with one. He could have had two.
It's why I'm hoping that Herbert can secure one, and I'll just give him a blank check. Just give him SoFi Stadium. He's already sponsored by SoFi. You don't want your
quarterback to have a blank check. Tom Brady doesn't have a blank check. Look how many Super Bowls he has. You don't want your quarterback to have a blank check.
Tom Brady's of a different generation, and his wife is richer than he is for now. Not going to talk about Tom's
talking about the
marital
misses.
troubles. Giselle, we're big fans, but Tom, speaking of the doghouse, but back to the game. Khalil Herbert looked really good. Montgomery is probably playing for a different team next season. If
Maybe
we're going to be honest, I feel like he and Josh Jacobs are going to be in the same camp of talented running backs, but running back is a resource that you can replenish every 4 years through the draft, more likely than not.
Right.
If the weather gets better, I expect Justin Fields to be able to throw for more yards. Obviously, him getting 2 touchdowns through the air is amazing for him for this Week 1 matchup. And this is the Niners defense that is no slouch. I just think both of these teams play better next week as long as the weather is permitting it. I think San Francisco, whoever they're playing next week, that team better look out. I think the Niners come out, and they come out serious. We got the Bears next week playing the – got it right here. Bears versus Packers. Maybe they own Aaron Rodgers now. Who knows? But
where's that game at?
I think you guys are playing in Green Bay. I think.
Oh, that's not fun. It would have been so great if he showed up to our house without Alan Lazard and been like, "Hey, I thought this was your house. Aaron. Not no more."
Let me double check just to be sure. Yeah. At Green Bay.
But they're probably gonna have a good game in Green Bay. Those bastards, those fucking cheese eaters.
Yeah, it's all in the hats. It's all in the hats. But congratulations to the Bears, 1-0. The Niners are still tied for the division lead in the NFC West. So as long as Seattle doesn't pull a rabbit out of the hat, you can't beat it. Speaking of can't be beat, we're now going to everyone's reigning, defending AFC champions. And apparently they can be beat. The Steelers were able to march into Cincinnati, win with a score of 23-20, Justin. What happened?
Absolutely hated that game. Evan McPherson missed the pad. It was blocked. That's what happened. It's some bullshit. Some bullshit is what it was. I mean, I don't know. It wasn't a great game from either side. Very reminiscent of the Bears and the Niners, the Texans and the Colts. Just a classic grinded out football game that just refused to end, especially in favor of the Bengals, who I was betting on in that game. Kind of getting to the breakdown. Mitch, for me, he just wasn't it. You're going to see very similar box scores with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. He's going to spread the ball around a lot. He's going to kind of start the game off with the less than primary receivers. You're probably going to need to use Claypool at the running back position. I'm not sure what's going on with Najee Harris there. If they're going to work in some of these other guys with running back touches, Jalen Warren, did not look like it either. Feel like they're going to have to maybe get Pickett in there in a few weeks. And this is after a win. This is me after a win. Like, I was not impressed with the Steelers. Left a lot on the table in the second half. Gave opportunities when you got 4 interceptions from Burrow. That's not going to happen again. Don't expect that to happen anytime again soon. Very disappointed really on both sides. Bengals had this game won in so many ways if they just played more disciplined football. Whether it was the interceptions, the fumble, the missed pat, just, the bonehead stuff on defense, just like, how did that happen? Letting Claypool do what he did out of the running back position. Like, just a lot of question marks from both sides. Really wasn't that impressed. I did like, seeing Burrow battle back. You like seeing Jamar Chase do Jamar Chase type things, but, there really wasn't too many other bright spots. I know some guys like Hayden Hurst had a good day. Joe Mixon had a great day. He had like 34 ungodly touches. That's amazing, but no touchdown. That was sad. But yeah, I mean, I really wasn't that surprised by much of it other than how bad the game was, just how undisciplined both sides played.
Yeah, no, I have not been a fan of the Bengals hype for the most part. I felt that they were any team that makes a Super Bowl run tends to be fortunate in varying degrees. I thought the Bengals were an extremely fortunate team throughout the playoffs last season. There were some very unfortunate circumstances in this game. T. Higgins being knocked out due to the concussion. It always sucks to see somebody get injured. And like you were saying, the Bengals won this game. They out-earned the Steelers by almost 200 yards total. They outpassed them in terms of passing yards, outrushed them in terms of rushing yards, had a better yards per play. They could not get to Mitch Trubisky in terms of the defense. Trey Hendrickson, he did not have a concurrent sack in a week for the first time since I don't know when. This Bengals defense is a defense that I have been talking about in terms of they are due for regression in a big time way. Trey Hendrickson went on a run as a edge rusher last year that was absolutely insane. And I'm not saying he's not a good edge rusher. He's not the top tier of the position. He is not your TJ Watt. He is not your prime Khalil Mack. He's not one of those guys. He is very good and he will earn his money, but you're not expecting him to get you 2-3 sacks a week or get a sack in 8 straight weeks every single year. The secondary, I have never been fully inspired with the duo of Chidobe Awuzie and Eli Apple. It's just not my cup of tea. Cooper Kupp, he loved that cup of tea all the way to a Super Bowl ring last year. Big thing for me, the newly revamped Bengals offensive line struggled. And this is not really a huge reason for concern. We had similar questions about Kansas City last year whenever they revamped and retooled their offensive line. Stuff like this takes time. You have to have a group that is playing together for at least a portion of time before you can say, well, it's not going to work. But it is alarming that Joe Burrow was on his back 7 times this game. This is a guy that's already lost the season or most of the season due to an ACL tear. We thought he was badly hurt in the Super Bowl on one of those plays whenever he went down. Joe Burrow has to stay upright, especially if this team wants to be pushing for a playoff spot, let alone win their own division. Jamar Chase is him. Newsflash to anybody that forgot, he's that guy. If Justin Jefferson is him, Jamar Chase is him adjacent, and Cooper Kupp is the other him. It's insane how talented the receivers are nowadays and how good they are becoming at such young ages. Joe Mixon, feed me more, I guess. Maybe the game's a little different.
How? Like how? 40 touches. Put it on my contract.
Yeah, Joe Mixon said, I had a healthy year. Give me 50 touches. I got it. My body's going to hold up. It's crazy. The Steelers aren't going to get 5 turnovers out of Joe Cool again. I don't think if he's going to turn the ball over 5 times again in the game ever for the rest of his career.
Yeah, I was gonna say, give me a couple of seasons. Aaron Rodgers didn't throw an interception to the NFC North for like 3 years or some shit. Joe, that's not gonna happen to Joe Burrow for a long time.
Yeah, so it was the perfect. I wouldn't even call it a perfect storm for Pittsburgh with the Najee Harris injury.
Dude.
It was a game. This was a game that turned into a rock fight all the way to the point where Chris Boswell said, "I'm ending it now." Not because he wanted the game to end. It's just he's tired. You know, Chris is getting up there in age. He wanted to go home, just like everybody else. But the Steelers' defense really impressed me. Their additions of Miles Jack in the offseason, it paid off a little bit. He had 6 tackles, 4 assists. Yeah, he was very good in this game. TJ Watt came down with a pick. Minkah Fitzpatrick was everywhere.
Yeah.
This is a Steelers defense that is now possibly – Brian Flores is now in-house helping the Steelers defense. Mike Tomlin is still the best coach in the division, and I am as out on Zach Taylor as I ever have been. I don't have faith in the guy, and good luck to both teams. I think the Bengals are probably better off for the rest of the year, but what a way to start the year for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm a big Burrow pusher. I've been, on record this offseason, making kind of gaudy Peyton Manning type of comparisons, hitting that 5,000 yard threshold, potentially pushing for 45 passing touchdowns. And it was mostly predicated on offense is really good. Defense is just kind of meh. And they're going to be in a lot of games like this. I don't think they'll be as bad. Like, I think they'll be in more games like this coming up where, the offense is good, but the defense just isn't there. And it's, 32-32, and, we're looking for McPherson again.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree. Me as a Justin Herbert truther and diehard Chargers fan, I can only give Burrow so much credit because, humility is dead in this day and age. But the thing with the Bengals, I have given the Las Vegas Raiders a lot of crap this offseason. And the Bengals are the best version of what Vegas could be this season in terms of having an insanely skilled offense but the Bengals have a better offensive line and a better defense across the board. So in terms of I think the whole package, I feel like the upside of Cincinnati is better than what you will get out of Oakland's defense. But star power wise, I think Oakland has them beat.
Yeah. I can pick them. I can pick them apart though on both sides. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I like Jesse Bates in the back end, but I like Hendrickson up front, Hubbard up front too. But like those to me are like their 3 big playmakers. And when I look at the Raiders, like you still have Perriman, you still have Crosby,
Jones.
God, I was about to say, was it Abram or Abraham?
Jonathan Abraham. They just got Rocky Sin as well in the offseason.
Rocky Sin doesn't really impress me too much, but a lot of those guys up front, like there's some gritty dudes in between the tackles for the Raiders. So I don't know. That's a tough one for me, but I agree with the sentiment. Like they're very similarly built. Excuse me.
Yeah. If Derek Carr is going to have this career year, I expect Joe Burrow, if there's a season for him, like you said, to reach these 5,000-yard seasons, like 40-plus touchdowns, I think this year has to be the start of it. But yeah, Pittsburgh tied for the lead in the division. Go Mike Tomlin, I guess.
Crazy.
Cincy,
hard team to root against.
Hard team to root against. Speaking of rooting against stuff, the Death Star officially blew up this weekend. I'm kidding. New England lost. Miami won. I don't think it was as surprising as anybody was going to initially state it. I felt the Dolphins should have been favored in this game. I'm sure they were coming into the week. Yeah, as they should have been. New England didn't give me a lot to really cheer for in the offseason, whereas Miami made some big splashes. Justin, what were your thoughts on the game plan of Miami and how they were able to execute against this Patriots defense and how Mac Jones and the offense looked?
Very conservative. They won the turnover battle 3-0. Tua didn't make any mistakes. The running backs really didn't make any mistakes. Everybody just kind of showed up and did their job. There wasn't really too much risk exposure with the throws downfield. A lot of stuff was very scripted, well designed. You did see Tyreek Hill make a couple of plays, like contested catches, but for the most part, everything was pretty much hit open or hit out in space. So well game planned by Mike McDaniel. Just, slobber knocked, Bill Belichick right in the mouth. No big deal. Getting Mike McDaniel 1-0 in his career as a head coach. Another person that's just hard to root against. Looking at some of the numbers just from the game, total yards, Miami 307 to New England 271. Felt like it was going to be pretty close. 20-7. I felt like the game was closer than that. The Dolphins didn't get a touchdown until it was Jalen Waddle in the second quarter.
Yeah.
And then they had a defensive touchdown. So only one touchdown from that offense. Would have liked to seen more. You had the Patriots in uncharted territory down in Miami where it's like 104 degrees outside. They were sweating bullets. They were making them work for it. But, the offense for New England, pretty on par with Miami, but just inefficient. I felt like the play calling was a little vanilla, kind of similar to Sean McVay's approach. You had this Miami team that was really dialed in. They were getting their drives cut short, but still, they were moving the ball. They were possessing the ball. The Patriots, I feel like they didn't know who they were. It felt like they were going to come out and be this run-heavy team, and then all of a sudden, Mac Jones is passing a lot, and you're just like, whoa, slow down, pal. You don't know what you're doing out there. You're going too fast. So I don't know. I felt like the passing game was not there for the Patriots whatsoever. Again, they total yards, they were able to keep on pace, but would have liked to see more aggressive usage of Stevenson, kind of how we talked about Mooney and Komet. Get some design plays for this guy. He's super talented. Dame Harris, you can just run him just up the middle all you want. He's going to give it to you. You might have some down weeks with that approach, but I definitely think that Dame Harris is still a baller. He can definitely play. I don't think that the talent versus one of those running backs is light years above the other, but I do feel that both of them are intrinsic weapons to their offense, and those guys should be taking the majority of the touches because you have two, right? And they always have depth at running back. The receiving weapons are okay, but no one blows up the field. You know what I mean? Like Devontae Parker, where was he? He had a revenge game opportunity in Miami. If there's anyone that was used to the 105-degree heat, it was Devontae Parker. Come on, Devontae Parker, killing me.
Yeah, it's the Patriots. I feel like they were one of the biggest overachievers in last year's season. And to be fair, they did come out and they beat a lot of teams, a lot of given weeks. This team lost a lot of pieces. They lost Cal Van Noy. They lost J.C. Jackson, arguably a top 3 corner in all of the league. It's hard to replace people like that. Oh, I love it, dude. Bring all the expatriates at this point, as long as they're not C.J. Mosley. The thing about former Patriots is you just got to be careful. If they're going to Matt Patricia or any other Bill Belichick disciple, they're probably cooked. But J.C. Jackson, can't wait to see you play in a Chargers uniform. And Kyle Van Noy, thank you for your contributions. Back to the points. This game, whenever you look at the actual raw data of it, they played, stuff happened. Tyreek Hill, 8 receptions, 94 yards, didn't score a touchdown. Jalen Waddle, find him in the end zone. I love Jalen Waddle. I have so much stock in him in fantasy this year. Chase Edmonds, for me, he was super hyped up in terms of fantasy this offseason, in terms of this is the guy you want to get in the late rounds. Well,
Right.
what you see is what you get. 12 for 25 yards. The Chase Edmonds experience, and hopefully catches a touchdown.
He started off good, but it just
yeah.
faded.
Yeah, this was kind of how I expected the game to go. It's hard to like root for the Patriots in general because of the success they've had in the past. But this is a team that in the offseason, the front office said our receivers are not cutting it. So they traded N'Keal Harry, got some draft capital, and they were like, our big addition is Devontae Parker. And as Austin and I pointed out in our prediction for this matchup, New England's a team that has a bunch of like wide receiver threes playing wide receiver ones and wide receiver twos. And whenever that's your game plan to try and move the rock through the air, it's not conducive to winning. And Miami was kind of in a similar situation before they drafted the guy in Jalen Waddle and traded for Tyreek Hill. But this is what happens whenever you give, regardless of who the quarterback is, ample weapons to move the ball down the field. We saw it with Mitch Trubisky and his treasure trove in Pittsburgh. If you bring talent, production usually follows, regardless of the caliber of quarterback. And whenever you have the caliber of quarterback and you surround them with talent, that's whenever Tyreek Hill ascends to a top 5 receiver, top 2 receiver. Sure. That's the special part. But yeah, on paper, Miami was better equipped to win this game. They were playing at home, and whenever it comes to Miami, I wouldn't have wanted to be there. I was in Anaheim 2 weeks ago, and the humidity was like over 40%, 105 outside. I was like, damn, I'd rather be inside. And I was in Disneyland, so it's the happiest place on earth. Can't be mad, but
sweating balls waiting in line for a roller coaster.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm like, I can't wait to ride Space Mountain with the air conditioning and all the wind going through my hair. But yeah, no, you will catch me dead before I'm at a Miami Dolphins game at Hard Rock, unless it's February. But
I don't know, man. They got some nice luxury box suites. I'm in the MetLife one right now. I mean, Miami, they got some nice stuff down there. I'm just saying, like,
hey man,
they got jacuzzis and pools. I mean,
Justin is our resident insider. Always taking it to the hizzy. So Browns Panthers. I don't want to get too deep on this myself. Baker Mayfield revenge game. The only revenge that was exacted was Nick Chubb on his former teammate, and by that I mean Kareem Hunt took all of the touchdown equity. But Nick Chubb always rushing for over 100 yards and saying, "I don't need the touchdowns." But man, if this is all that Carolina's going to get, at what point do you just tank and try and get your next star quarterback? Because they can keep doing this thing where they're trading for the next best option at quarterback. But every move they've made since Cam Newton regressed has been a lateral move at best. And whenever you're consistently lateraling, you're going to waste CMC, DJ Moore, and all of this talent that we know is there for this Carolina team.
I think they need a change in leadership. I mean, Marcus Mariota, man, he was available. He was on the streets looking for a job. I said he would fit perfect in this offense. Can run the triple option, can be more deceptive with the play calling. You have a rushing quarterback with CMC, like a legitimate one, not a poser like Cam Newton. Like, I'm sorry, but like those years were over when they brought him back. Like everyone knew that. And all of us were at home going, huh? What's going on? Sam Darnold, it's been written on the wall since he saw ghosts in New England. Like, it's been over. Like, it's not going to be a thing. Obviously, he's hurt. I feel bad for him in that instance. I do still feel like Baker Mayfield is an upgrade from those guys.
Yeah.
Now, by how much? I don't know. Can't really tell you. But he hasn't been there that long. I think there are better weeks ahead for the Panthers. I'm not going to overreact to a poor CMC stat line, a poor DJ Moore stat line. DJ Moore's had a stat lines like this before many times. He still is constantly hitting over 1,100 plus receiving yards. He's constantly still getting over 75 plus catches. Like, he's going to be fine. CMC, literally his first action back in football. Literally his first action back in football in a year. He'll be fine. He's going to get used a lot. The very first play that they called to get CMC a touch, he was blown up for -5. I knew it was going to be a long day at that point. Yeah. You could tell that the Browns were ready for them. The Browns knew about Baker just as much as Baker knew about the Browns. They know what he could do. So both sides had a very good scouting report of the other, hence why we saw still such a really close game from not two really great quarterbacks. To the Browns side, I fade all of the receivers for the Browns. I had Njoku just kind of like in there. It's like, oh, he's the tight end. Brissett's going to get it to him. No, I don't want any of those guys. I'm not buying DPJ and his okay week one. I'm not buying Amari Cooper to bounce back. I don't want any of those dudes. Give me all them running backs. Give me some Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb.
Yeah. I had the Panthers winning this game. I was optimistic for Baker Mayfield and his chance at revenge. Surprised it was this close. It took Cade York hitting the game winner. Both of these teams are less than optimal in terms of their output for week one. Jacoby Brissett surprised me, did not turn the ball over, which is huge for this Browns team. Their defense is good enough to keep games close, and their rushing attack, when healthy, is one of the best in the league. Their offensive line is really good. The receiver room, I'm not in love with. Whenever Donovan Peoples-Jones is pacing your pass catchers, it's not ideal. I like Amari Cooper talent-wise, but until he has a above-average quarterback tossing him the rock, you can't put much equity into him. The Baker thing's going to get better. It has to. I feel like a lot of pressure was put on Baker for this game because it was a revenge game. Since college, Baker really hasn't been the type for revenge. He's gone from cupping his nuts to doing progressive commercials or Geico, whatever it is. Like Hulu, exactly. It has live sports, and Baker Mayfield wants to play live sports. McCaffrey didn't get carted off the field or leave due to an injury. That's a win in my book. Are we surprised that Robbie Anderson's the guy that went for 100 yards? This is just Odell Beckham all if
not really.
Baker Mayfield starts throwing to Robbie Anderson over DJ Moore for the rest of the season, it was never Odell. It was always Baker, because if we see DJ Moore become an afterthought, I am going to lose my ever-loving mind, because DJ Moore
was dueling with Denzel Ward, who is one of the best corners in the league.
I know.
Like it's still a bit of an overreaction. Yeah, Robbie had the easier looks. Baker knows how to not attack Denzel Ward's side of the field.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? Like there's just a lot of like, not simple narratives, but just like, why didn't we think of this? Like, you know what I mean? Like when I had what was it? Cleveland covering. Cleveland covering. They won by 3. But that was still just like, it was like 0-0 well into the second quarter. You know what I mean? It was just complete grinded out type of feel them out game. Neither side really rose to the occasion. They just kind of like figured it out on the go.
Yeah, no. We didn't learn too much about either of these teams in this matchup. I think both of these teams, I think the Panthers will play a lot better throughout the season. I think the more reps Baker gets with the weapons, it's just going to get better. I still like their defense a lot, especially in their division. They've got a lot of younger guys that are extremely talented. I love Jeremy Chin. I love Brian Burns. J.C. Horn is going to continue to improve. C.J. Henderson, if he can even remotely recapture what he had in Jacksonville, is a stud corner. This is a defense that has a lot of upside, not even including Derek Brown, huge body. It's going to get better for Carolina, and it kind of has to with the amount of talent that they do have. Matt Rule, it will not get better for you. I kind of hope they're sluggish to start the year and they can finally get rid of him.
I was going to say he could be like a week 5 fire candidate, in my opinion.
First coach fired in my eyes. I feel like if they start out 1-4, I think that there's no reason to keep him around. There's no reason whatsoever. He hasn't built anything for the franchise. Besides,
they might want to take a look at their GM too, because I don't know who's been making these quarterback decisions. Because my God,
if you were just judging their roster construction based upon their defense, and then you're also looking at their like skill positions, man, that front office is lights out. But the quarterback does matter. So
I feel like they're just like, we have CMC, it'll be fine. Kind of like how Jerry Jones was like, we have Dak, it'll be fine. It's not cool. It's not fine. It's not working out. It's like,
but the Browns I think the Browns are actually probably going to come out of this first 5 games looking at like a 3-2 record, probably at the worst, because I just think their floor is relatively safe, especially in some of these lower tiered matchups they're going to get to start the year.
Right.
But speaking of matchups, people thought this game was going to go a certain way. I'm pleasantly surprised it didn't. Indianapolis and Houston just said, no, I don't want it. Do you want it? Apparently not.
I wanted it.
So, Justin, how are you? I'm looking at the actual like box score in terms of like quarter by quarter. The Colts did not show up to Houston until the fourth quarter because, 3 points in 3 quarters is not what you expect from a team that upgraded a quarterback.
I would say it's a pretty lateral move at quarterback. I mean, Carson Wentz, more of a backyard football player, constant impromptu play action. Why is he running that way? That's not what the playbook says. Why come back here? Oh, he threw a touchdown. That was crazy. Weird. That's who Carson Wentz is. Or another time it's an interception. Like it's very coin flip type of quarterback, reminiscent of, your Jameis Winston 30 for 30 season. Right. So I don't know if Matt Ryan's necessarily a upgrade, but definitely a lateral move. I felt like Carson Wentz might as well have been playing for the Colts. It kind of felt like that, but they were able to figure it out. On paper, they are the better team, and they probably should have won. If Shaq Leonard's in that game, maybe that game's going a little bit better their way early on, right? I mean, they were still missing some pieces. Houston was a team that was playing for nothing. Just hey, guys, we're minus 400 or plus 400 underdogs here. Like, what are we doing? Like, come on, let's just go out there and have fun, right? They didn't have anything to lose. They are about to win. Their defense showed up early. I felt like give it up to them. Colts were still playing on the road, not really overreacting too much to them. Matt Ryan and Pittman still look good. Jonathan Taylor was still Jonathan Taylor. More interested to see what develops from the secondary receivers out of that group. Alec Pierce dropped a touchdown in the end zone. Not cool, Alec Pierce. Do better. Outside of Pittman, I think Hines was second in catches with like six for 50 or 6 for 60, something like that. So I think we need to see someone else step up there, whether it's going to be Campbell, Pierce, Molly Cox. Would have liked to see more out of him. I had to start him because George Kittle was hurt. Didn't like that very much. From Houston, you're going to keep seeing a lot of this. A lot of, unfortunately, Rex Burkhead. You're going to be seeing a lot of Rex Burkhead until Damian Pierce, really gets the training wheels taken off.
Yeah.
Brandon Cooks is Brandon Cooks. Davis Mills kind of was that clear step forward that we thought we were going to see from him in the offseason. So a lot of positives actually for the Texans in this one. Kind of similar. It felt like, they won, kind of like the Bengals and the Steelers, how the Bengals won, but, the Steelers scored more points. Kind of felt like that. Like, man, Houston, like they won this game, but they lost, they tied, but they lost, in the end of it because they should have had it won.
Looking at the team stats for this game, can you guess how much yards the Colts put up in total?
Oh, probably a lot because, Jonathan Taylor had a lot of yards. Matt Ryan had a lot of passing yards. I'm going to say something like, I don't know, like 387.
517 total yards.
Holy hell. Didn't think it was that high.
The Texans, 299. The crazy. Colts. Yeah, Jonathan Taylor, for anyone that was concerned about Taylor after his monster year last year, the monster mash is back. 31 carries is not insane for him, but 5.2 yards per carry for 31 touches is absolutely insane. Shout out the Buffalo Bills for unleashing OJ Howard. We just didn't know it yet. Davis Mills loves tight ends, and I didn't even realize OJ Howard was on the Texans until I read the sheet. Yeah. So it's going to be a lot of the same out of the AFC South this year. You have the Colts and the Titans, who really did not get better in the offseason, whereas the Texans and the Colts, by just the laws that be, got better. Players got older.
Culture got better.
Yeah, culture got better. So you have the top two teams that have kind of stayed the same, addition by subtraction. One lost A.J. Brown, inherited Robert Woods. The Colts lost some pieces. They got Yannick Ngakoue and they got Stephon Gilmore. They got rid of Carson Wentz, and they added Matt Ryan. So the Titans and the Colts, not really inspired this year looking at the rosters. It's a lot of the same that we've seen over the last couple of years. But you've got some upstarts in the rest of this division that are going to make things super interesting. And speaking of interesting, Saints-Falcons took me by surprise because the Falcons came out and punched the Saints in the mouth in the way that I did not expect. Speaking of not expecting things, can someone please stop letting Taysom Hill take Alvin Kamara's touchdowns? As someone that drafted Taysom Hill as a backup tight end in a 2 tight end league, I'm feeling great about that right now. But at the same time, free Alvin Kamara, please. Taysom Hill's a cool dude, I'm sure. Apparently he has dirt on Dennis Allen because the way he gets used makes no sense to me. But
he's getting paid like over $10 million a year to do nothing. Yeah. They got to use him.
He went 4 for 81 and a touchdown on the ground.
They did not have to give him that touchdown either. They were just like, man, this dude brought us all the way down the field. We're giving it to him. We're gonna force feed him in the red zone, and he finished it. So by all means, Taysom, you son of a bitch, Yeah, that was awful to watch. Like if you're a fantasy owner, I mean, if you're a Saints fan, you're I guess excited.
You're pumped,
like,
I guess.
Don't know how you get excited about that. Like, yeah, okay, this guy just did this. Do you think he's going to do this every single week? It's not sustainable. Let's go. Get Mike Thomas in the field. Come on. And then they put Mike Thomas in the field and he scored 2 touchdowns. I'm like, what the hell? What is going on? The sky is falling.
Yeah, my thing with this game personally, Taysom Hill getting so much like shine at running back. For me, it's like imagine the Thanksgiving game if Dennis Allen were the head coach when Kamara went for 6. We'd be talking about the Taysom Hill 5-tutty game to this day. No, Taysom Hill is a thorn in everyone's side in fantasy. For me, this game was it was great. It was everything that I didn't expect it to be. I thought the New Orleans defense would put up a better fight against this Falcons offense, especially with no Calvin Ridley and no Tyler Algier. Drake London played really well for a guy that I expected Marshawn Lattimore to shadow for the entire day. Kyle Pitts underachieved in the grand scheme, but he's the best offensive weapon on the field. Of course, he's not going to get his usual fill of targets and yards. For me, it's all Michael Thomas this week. Jameis played extremely well, no turnovers. But Michael Thomas coming back and having the game that he did, as someone that drafted Michael Thomas at the discount in every league damn near, I love to see it. Great story. He's a guy that's dealt with adversity over the last 2-3 years, and I think he's gotten a lot of disrespect in ways that he's never fully deserved. Slant Boy was funny for the year that he was the best receiver in football, but he put up 2 touchdowns and over 50 yards on one of the best corners and the NFL had last year in A.J. Terrell. So Jarvis Landry got all the yards, and that's great, but if Thomas is catching these touchdowns, the yards are going to follow. It's just the way it's going to work out.
Well, the workload's going to go up because he didn't play for like the first half of the game because of quote unquote conditioning. And I was losing my mind because I took him out of lineups because literally 2 minutes before the kickoff, that's the tweet that comes out. I was like, oh, he's only going to play in 20 to 30 snaps. I'm like, no, you don't. 20 to 30 snaps, my ass. You're playing in my lineup. And then he drops 2 touchdowns. Like, yeah.
We just gotta understand for Jameis that any snaps with Michael Thomas are just passes to Michael Thomas. Yeah.
Touchdowns. Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous. Liked what I saw out of the Saints. The Taysom Hill stuff. Yeah, it's annoying for fantasy, but as a football team, they took care of business. They got it done. Man, Atlanta, Marcus Mariota looks smooth. I don't care what anybody says. Yep. I was banging his drum all offseason. I just told you earlier about how I wanted him to go to Carolina, et cetera. That was the call. Screw that call. ATL, let's go. Birds fly. I'm ready to go. I mean, he looks really good. I'm not a big Cordell Patterson guy, but, he played pretty good this week. It seems like he's going to have a more defining role going forward with Damian Williams getting hurt. I don't think Tyler Algier is really that great. I don't know. I feel like you'd have a little bit more focus, like if they were actually ready to like roll him out, like they'd actually get him some design touches. But yeah. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be there for him. I think they're going to ride Patterson till the wheels fall off. Pitts will be better. London, I think, will be better. I think this is like his floor because he was questionable this week. I think he's going to have some big weeks ahead as well. Olamide Zaccheaus was kind of more of like the anomaly here. I think that production will probably shift over to Pitts going forward. Yeah, no.
For Arthur Smith, I think Arthur Smith is actually a really good offensive mind in the NFL currently. I think he's underrated as the head coach. What he did with Atlanta last year, whenever the brakes kind of fell off and Ridley wasn't able to play due to his mental health reasons and all that stuff, I think the Falcons are going to overachieve, for lack of better terms. I don't think they're bad enough to totally bottom out and get a top 5 pick. Sure. But yeah, Mariota looked good. I think it's really cool that you saw the Jameis versus Mariota matchup for the first week of this season. Classmates in the 2015 draft class. I'm just happy to see both of them finding a home because they're both talented players that just really didn't have the chance after those rookie scale contracts were up. But speaking of contracts, Lamar's is officially going to be done after this season. They have stopped talks, and the franchise tag is going to be in effect. Because, man, a healthy Baltimore Ravens team, regardless of who they're playing, 24-9 against the Jets. Ravens flock. I am very happy to see a healthy Lamar Jackson and him having his weapons at his own disposal.
Yeah, he looked great. I would have liked to have seen more of a rushing attack from him. It's the Jets after all. Maybe closer to that Jalen Hurts stat line would have been a little bit more appetizing from Lamar Jackson, but the weather conditions weren't great. So maybe they told him just like, hey man, like, it's the Jets, like just go easy on the legs, huh? Like, it's the Jets, like we're going to be fine. And they were fine. Joe Flacco had a bunch of garbage time stats. I think he threw for over like 300 passing yards somehow, completely spread the ball around. But the Ravens look great. You know, I didn't like some of the early dead drives. You know, they were able to figure it out. There were a couple of drops, just a couple of misreads. You know, Lamar does have obviously, you know, not new receivers. He had Bateman last season. Isaiah Likely is new. Isaiah Likely had a couple of bad plays. I think he'd like to have back. Devin Duvernay was definitely a delightful surprise for Ravens fans. 2 touchdowns, awesome to see. Bateman didn't have the greatest day, but he did have the big play breaker downfield, which I think, you know, if you're, you know, a pessimist, that's something that you definitely want to see is like, all right, well, at least he was able to hit a big one for a touchdown. Yep. But going forward, you definitely want to see him in the game plan more early and often. And same goes for Mark Andrews. Only 5 catches from Mark Andrews. That's kind of a dud in Mark Andrews' territory, or in consideration to what he can do. So just felt like a game like they just kind of felt like they had won, and they weren't really going to be really risky or, you know, set themselves up to just fail. It was just very technical football. I remember the first score was a field goal over a touchdown. I'm going, man, that's crazy. Like I would have figured they scored 3 touchdowns before they'd have to kick a field goal up against the Jets. My goodness, you know. Jets side of things, they need Zach Wilson back. I mean, even with Flacco looking like okay, you know, you obviously saw way too many dead drives. Breece Hall, I think, led the team in targets with like 6. That's obviously not good when you have Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, now Garrett Wilson. Like, you need to be pushing the ball down the field. Flacco is going to be way too conservative. I'm ready to bring out the great white Mike, get him out there, let him chuck the ball. He's actually going to try and push the ball down the field. You know, you're already down 0-1. Patriots are down 0-1. You know, obviously the Bills are at top of the division, but you know, try to get yourselves ahead in the division before, you know, it's all over.
Yeah, this was I kind of feel bad for Jets fans. They were a team that, like, post NFL draft, felt like they had some real momentum going, and then the Zach Wilson news came out. I'm not talking about his knee, and then the knee happened, and now
felt like that was great news. I feel like the Jets fans love that news.
Well, you know, whenever you haven't made the playoffs in so many years, any news is good news. They lost Becton. It's just this myriad of injuries for a team that's still trying to get its footing. It's like you take one step and you insert the soundbite of my leg. Like, it's just New York hasn't had a whole lot to cheer for since that NFL draft happened. They've got a lot of really good pieces. They just need all of their pieces to take the field at the same time. And so if you would have told me Joe Flacco was starting for the Jets in 2014, I would have been like, okay, this is cool. It's 2022. And Joe's no longer the cool guy. He's the elder statesman, and there's no Jacoby Jones. There's no Jacoby Jones in this story. Like, throw the ball to Elijah Moore, I guess, because Elijah Moore is that guy. And Corey Davis, shout out for you having a good game whenever I was saying you were the guy in this offense to get last year. So it's not going to be good. It's going to be a lot of ugly, and it'll probably be a lot of bad. A lot of talent on the offensive side, some decent talent on the defensive side as well. There's 2 Michael Carters on this team, so don't get too confused. One's only got one. They're both in the 30s. So just if you see number 2 next to the 3, that's the running back. You see the 0, that's the defensive back. Sauce Gardner had a good first week. He only allowed like 1 completion. Still no touchdowns on his watch. So the Sauce is still
he wasn't on the Bateman coverage?
I'm not sure, because I saw Pro Football Focus. They were like, he had like 1 reception for like 8 yards allowed on the day.
Oh, all right. Well, then he could not have been, if that's the case.
Yeah, I guess so. Why is Joe Flacco on the defensive alignment? I just need answers. Whatever. So congrats to the Ravens. If they stay healthy, they're my pick for this division. I just think they're going to be good. And that's them playing without J.K. Dobbins. They're still rolling out this running back platoon that we saw last year, just with new faces. Instead of Devonta Freeman and Le'Veon Bell, we have Kenyon Drake and Mike Davis until J.K. and Gus get back. So great step forward for this Ravens team. Speaking of steps forward, the Jaguars and the Commanders put up more points than I expected in the first week. Is Carson Wentz the truth for the Commanders, Justin?
No, it's going to be up and down like this all season long. He threw 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions this week. He'll throw 2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions next week. It's going to be a wild ride, Commanders fans, so buckle up. He's just not, the bill of consistency. You know, he just doesn't gleam it, right? I mean, I would have liked to see Terry included more in this game. I think Antonio Gibson may have led his team in targets. Is that right? Do you have that up?
I only have the reception data, so he was second in the team in receptions behind Curtis Samuel. But I would assume Gibson probably had the most targets. Just
it's one of those two, and yeah, great to see Curtis Samuel kind of back at it, producing someone that I can't root against. I know a lot of people were down on him this offseason. Oh, Jayon Dotson's going to come in and take his role. Well, they both played well this week, and it wasn't Terry McLaurin's it wasn't Big Terry's week, but he did still find a touchdown as well. God, I have to imagine they get Terry more involved. I have to believe that's a focal point going forward. But when Carson Wentz is forced into situations, when you make him do something he doesn't want to do, probably going to throw an interception. So forcing the ball to Terry may not be the answer. I have to expect we're going to see a lot more targeting to the running back, Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick, and probably some more progression from Terry and Curtis Samuel. Jayon Dotson's pretty interesting. 2 touchdowns, 3 catches. Is that sustainable? Not so sure. Find out in the weeks to come here, but it's not an offense that I want to get involved with every single week in like DFS or betting and things like that. Like they could have just as well as lost that game to the Jaguars, who also played pretty well. Liked what I saw out of Trevor Lawrence early, kind of faded as the game went on, in my opinion. Christian Kirk was pretty much as promised, like what his role was going to be. He's going to get used all over the field. He's going to be a high volume receiver. Going to be some low A dot targets, going to be some high A dot targets. He's going to be used everywhere. Huge buy candidate in fantasy football if you can get him for the right price. You don't want to overpay for him, but if there's someone willing to sell, that's definitely somebody I want to target on that team. James Robinson versus the ETN narrative, that was fun. That was super fun for everyone that was screaming at me on Twitter for saying not to draft Travis Etienne in the 3rd round. Like, my God, that was driving me crazy all offseason. I felt like, I was Ron Burgundy screaming in a phone booth, like, what is happening? James Robinson came back. He was running sprints, like straight line sprints in June. It really shouldn't be that expected. It's just that people are just so against, listening against the media. Like everybody just buys into what's being put out there. Etienne looks good. He could have a lead role in this offense. Like, what do you mean? He's never played a snap in the NFL. What do you mean a lead guy? You know what I mean? James Robinson, you can trust him at least bare bones in the red zone. There was a target to Etienne where he volleyballed the ball. There was a target, and he was like, that. What are you doing, son? You catch the ball. Yeah. Like, you don't swat it. What are you doing? It was terrible. I'm just like, that's embarrassing, bro. And then after that, James Robinson had a reception touchdown. Like Etienne didn't fill out any of his like offseason narrative whatsoever. No pass catching, not a lead guy. His rushing was efficient. I'll give him that. What is he like 4 for 47 or 4? Yeah, so something crazy. That's cool. But he didn't rush the ball, like you were saying earlier. Like you can get a high average with low amount of carries, but if you want to be Jonathan Taylor someday, you got to be the 31 for 5, right? So Jacksonville, I feel like they're going to get better this season. I feel like they're going to get better. Rough week 1 for them, just ran into a weird quarterback situation on the other side. Yeah, no.
I like the Jaguars a lot. I'm happy that Trevor Lawrence didn't throw 3 picks and his receivers actually caught the ball for once. Looking at you, Laviska Shenault, they shipped him out of town, so maybe that's going to reap benefits.
Yeah, he didn't even dress for Carolina.
It's night and day the talent on this offense compared to last year. It was just bleak for the Jaguars, especially whenever you have Urban Meyer coaching it for the first half of the season. Right. I just like them. Everything's trending up. Doug Peterson is like leaps and bounds above what Urban Meyer was last season. And Ron Rivera is a decent head coach. The Commanders have pieces. Chase Young is not back yet. That defense, I still don't love the secondary. Their front 4 is still elite, especially whenever Chase Young gets back. Carson Wentz will be
like week 5.
Yeah, Carson Wentz is the variance that this team is going to suffer from. Like you said, any week he gives you 4 touchdowns, 2 picks, you might get 1 or 2 weeks where it's like 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 2 touchdowns, 4 picks. Gibson, I like how Antonio Gibson played in this game. He didn't get the touchdown on the ground or a touchdown in the air, but he got yardage. And he is going to be involved in this offense until Brian Robinson gets back on the field. And to be honest, I still think Gibson is going to be a factor in this Washington offense because he is so talented. And we forget too often that he is a converted receiver to NFL running back. So I just think that Gibson is going to have a role in this offense for them to be the best that they can be. Really happy to see Curtis Samuel actually back on the field and producing. I loved him out in Carolina. I wish they could have kept him around in Carolina because I thought him and DJ Moore together is just a lot of people to have to cover, especially with the speed. Terry obviously is going to be included in this offense. They paid him the money to be the guy. So there's no reason to pay him all that money to give him 2 receptions on the day. Logan Thomas, happy that he's healthy. Jahan Dotson, 2 touchdowns in your first game. Good for you, man. Let's see you follow it up in week 2. They had a really good first week, and Jacksonville really did everything they could to make sure that it wasn't easy. And I digress. I did not draft ETN in any of the 3rd rounds of my drafts, but I loved him in rounds like 4, 5, 6, just because I think while James Robinson is a threat to his touches, the talent for ETN is there, in my opinion. Like he was a first-round running back, and for all the stuff that we give in terms of like Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, I think whenever you give a college quarterback one of their weapons from their college career, it translates easier than, say, someone that they've never played with. And I get it. Right. He's a running back, but I think Doug Peterson is creative enough to get ETN touches in space. And if Robinson sees any time off of the field due to any complications with injury, I think ETN is talented enough per touch to be able to capitalize upon it. And even with a split, I think ETN eventually, his talent will show through. But I agree, 3rd round was really steep. That felt like Josh Jacobs' rookie year, the way that he was getting drafted. It's you got to see it on the field. But yeah, no, sky is pointing straight up for this Jacksonville team, especially going against the team in the Colts next week that couldn't even beat out the Texans. I do think the Colts are probably going to win next week. But if Jacksonville and Houston are coming out and putting up 20 a game, they're going to be a hard out for anybody. And then, so we're back at it. That's week 2. And so after Jaguars Commanders, Aaron Rodgers does not own the city of Minnesota. So what are we thinking? Jordan Love got some shine in this game, 4 for 5. Is the future now? Probably not, but
no.
What are
it's just garbage time.
What's going on, man? I didn't expect the Packers to come out and like score 40 points. This is the second straight year they've kind of had a dud to start the year, but at least this year they don't have Devontae Adams.
Yeah, last year they had the dud, I think, against the Saints to start the season, and they finished just fine. Not really going to overreact. They'll have Allen Lazard back next week. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have a wide receiver 3. You mentioned like the Patriots have a bunch of wide receivers 3s trying to be a 1. He has wide receiver 4s and 5s. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like he has rookies that may have played well in the preseason and Romeo Doubs, but dude, these ain't 3rd string, 2nd string, corners. These are NFL players that you're going up against now. It's a little bit different story. Aaron Jones was probably the biggest disappointment for me. He should have been a more focal point of their attack, more design runs, more design catches. He could have been the pulse for their offense. They just didn't do it. They are just leaning in all the way into A.J. Dillon. I don't get it. I like that both of them get used, but when you don't have a receiver, somebody has to shift over somewhere and clean it up, whether it's Rob Tonyan getting touchdowns, whether it's Aaron Jones getting catches, whether it's A.J. Dillon getting carries, whatever it is, like somebody, has to fill some shoes here, and nobody wanted to step up, it felt like, for the Packers. Aaron just felt like he was felt like slinging it to nobody. Like literally just like guys are going the wrong direction. They're not running the right plays. Like, I know that there's like the whole skepticism of, Aaron doesn't like rookies. Well, it might be for a good reason. Like it may not be because they're not very good yet, and they're not drafting they're drafting Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs. Like these were like the first like utility players that he got, Aaron Rodgers, that is, like from any sort of like early rounds, like 2 or 3 or more. Right. I know Doubs was a later pick, but still, like, this is the first sign of help that he's gotten in forever. It's just going to take some time. I'm not really overreacting to that from like a team basis or a fantasy standpoint. They could be a lot better up against Chicago next week, and I'm a Chicago fan. Minnesota was great. I mean, just absolutely amazing. Dalvin Cook, I feel like, fantasy owner, you want to see that touchdown, but 90 rushing yards even on the 20 attempts is just fine for me. Cousins had a day. Jefferson had a day. Really, the only question with this team is who's going to step up behind Justin Jefferson. I would imagine from what we saw from this offense, Adam Thielen should have a pretty safe floor going forward, more of a touchdown dependent type of option. But I don't think we're going to see week in and week out, Justin Jefferson, playing like he did this week. Obviously this was a big boom for him, but otherwise he's going to get like 2,500 receiving yards this season if he does. Not betting on that to happen. Could have a very big year, but everyone's kind of got to temper expectations. He's not going to do this every week.
So for me, I was waiting for what the Vikings were going to be because I've been talking to people just off podcasts and stuff like, and I was telling somebody, I was in like this chat room, and I was like, I don't think it's a hot take, but I genuinely feel that like the Vikings are like a lock for the playoffs, and they have a better chance at making a Super Bowl than most teams in the AFC currently that aren't Bills, Chiefs, Chargers. Like that's just the way it's stacking
There's
out.
a clearer path.
Easier path. Yes, 100%.
It's not so muddy and like it is in the AFC with all the talent.
And I think their offense is built to withstand some of these top scoring units. Because hear me out. Kevin O'Connell had a great first week as the Minnesota Vikings head coach. And he was the lead guy offensively for Los Angeles last year. And Cooper Kupp was the lead guy in the NFL last year. Will Justin Jefferson be Cooper Kupp this year? Most likely not.
They look pretty similar week one.
Holy shit. That's what I'm saying. Because like we don't want to overreact and say Justin Jefferson's going to go for 2,000 yards.
Right.
But if there's anybody else in the league that I think could do it besides what Cooper Kupp did last year, Justin Jefferson he's the blueprint because he came in his rookie year. He broke like every record for a rookie receiver. Then Jamar did it the year after. Then he outpaced everybody for a second-year receiver. It's like this could be happening. The Vikings have been so average for so long. They get rid of Mike Zimmer, thank God. And now the offense can actually do something. Justin Jefferson, in my opinion, is the only receiver I would pick to start my franchise with out of the entire league. If I had one choice to make at that position, it's Jefferson than everybody else. And sure, they're splitting hairs on the back end of 2 and 3, but right. I just love what Jefferson brings. And it's crazy to me how he was the 2 for Joe Burrow at LSU. That's how good that receiver room was. And so I can't blame the Packers. I expected them to have a dud. I actually picked the Packers to win this game. I was not under the influence of alcohol, surprisingly, whenever I made that pick. I trusted Aaron Rodgers, and I expected Aaron Jones to actually touch the ball more than 10 times this game.
That's criminal in a game like that.
It feels like every time Aaron Rodgers and the Packers have struggled in the past, Aaron Jones would have like a 4-touchdown game and pull them out of the shit. And I just don't get how like Matt LaFleur didn't do something like that. It seems just
should have had 15 targets in that game, Aaron Jones.
Yeah, Aaron Jones. I love AJ
why
Dillon. I have Dillon in some leagues just due to the value of what he presents in that offense now, but
he's their guy. Like they love him. Did he not out touch Aaron Jones?
I'm pretty sure he did. Dillon had
by
15
like 2 or 3
touches, and Jones had by like 8 almost.
8. So he out touched him by 8. Do they know who Aaron Jones is? Like
it was by 7.
Do you know how much you're paying him? Like you're paying him.
That's
a
what I'm
starting
saying.
Running back salary. Like it's asinine. It's
Right.
absolutely asinine.
Trade Aaron Jones and pay Devontae Adams. Like
they could have let Aaron Jones walk. Aaron Jones, I think, was going to go to Miami, and they were like, nah, cut all that out. We're bringing you back. Like
this is like if the Browns gave Kareem Hunt like league-setting money at running back to pair with Nick Chubb. It makes no sense.
It would be more like if they refused to trade Kareem Hunt and then didn't use him. See, what they did was right. They were like, all right, we're not going to trade you, but here's two touchdowns. That's nice on your game check, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like they did the right thing. They said, all right, we're not trading you, but you're a huge part of this offense. You're going to be an identity of the offense to start the season because of our quarterback situation. You're going to get used a lot, and you're getting paid. So no trades needed. You know what I mean?
For me, Green Bay feels like this iceberg, kind of like the Titanic. I feel like they've been on the ship, and Green Bay's been heading towards this iceberg since like Jordy Nelson even retired. Because it's like Green Bay seems like they pay the wrong dude a lot of the time. Like I'm not saying Aaron Jones was a bad signing, but in the grand scheme, whenever they have to get rid of Devontae Adams, whenever they've signed Aaron Rodgers to this contract, and now they can't afford it because they have Rodgers and Aaron Jones on maximum contracts. Now they're starting Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson at receiver whenever they could have AJ Dillon and Devontae Adams.
If Lazard was there, like
it
would have been better, but they still lose the game. Like they don't just get one touchdown. Like you probably see them, you probably see them lose maybe by like 4-7, but they still lose that game because they were beat at every single level. The pass rush, balls downfield, everything. Like, you know, their defense showed up too, the Vikings. So yeah, they need to do a lot up there in Green Bay. And yeah, I don't mind if they're an iceberg because Justin Fields is global warming, baby. We're coming for him.
Hey man, well, you know, Aaron, he cut his hair. Maybe it's bad luck. I expect him to improve next week, but man,
when he's bald,
Minnesota, he shaved it off. At least on the side, he's got his nice little fade going. And speaking of fading, I'm not fading Saquon Barkley ever again in my lifetime. I've been a Saquon truther in fantasy for a while now. I didn't have any stock in him last year. 2 years ago, I drafted him like second overall, and that was the year where he just missed games because he got hurt. But if he's healthy, Saquon Barkley is as electric at the position as you're going to see. Mm-hmm. If we were so enthralled and just ecstatic about Jonathan Taylor's 160-something on 31 carries, Saquon Barkley's 18 for 164 is literal heroin in my veins. 9.1 yards per carry, Justin. This man is on a different planet.
Mode.
And then we're talking about the receiving work. 6 for 30 yards. He had a rushing touchdown. He had the 2-point conversion. Saquon Barkley's back. And he's this good and Brian DeBoll is going to coach this team this well, who gives a shit what Daniel Jones does as long as he's not turning the ball over?
Dude, that one turnover, though, I'm not going to lie. Like, I am not a Monty Hooker, okay? I don't play football. I talk about football. But I swear to you, Devin, I could have made that interception, okay? He telegraphed it. Like, he wrote the letter saying sent a singing telegram guy and just was like, hey, here comes the ball. I mean, Daboll was infuriated with him after that play. He was screaming at him on the sideline practically. Obviously, that's still going to be a huge issue for them going forward. Love that Saquon showed up. I went to bat for him this offseason. He was my running back 9. Most of the public had him around like 15, 16, kind of close to that dead zone, you know, during the summer months.
He was like the 24th pick in ESPN drafts. Which is insane. He was like that third round value. Yeah,
that's crazy. How do you think that they're going to use him? That's how I asked people.
Yeah,
like, when people were giving me all this harp about Eli Mitchell, and I know he's hurt now. He was a guy that I banged the drum for all off season, right? That player, his ADP last year was 27 with 11 games played, right? 27. Yeah. He was being drafted as like running back 29 with 11 games played.
Well, it's the AJ Dillon thing too. It's like
a very similar situation.
Yeah, it's like, well, it was the A.J. Dillon thing in this offseason as well. It's like, yes, he was the RB25 last season. Devontae Adams has gone and his role has drastically increased. Like, people are taking Tony Pollard over A.J. Dillon. And it's like,
no,
Zeke is still Zeke. And yeah, Pollard can play in the receiving game, but Dillon
Zeke only outsnapped him by like 2, but we'll get to that one here in a minute. But
I get you. But it's insane. It's looking at the New York Giants and saying, Saquon's not going to have it. It's like Daboll has no choice but to give Saquon Barkley the ball because now Wan'Dale Robinson is injured and Kadarius Toney just can't see the field. It's mind-boggling.
I felt like this game more so was just the Titans folding. Like they just lost this game. None of their receivers showed up. Shout out Kyle Phillips, the sleeper from the deep. I mean, this guy was going undrafted, Mr. Round 18, Mr. Round 22, Mr. Round 25, like the deep value as you can get, shining like a diamond. Kyle Phillips, go out and buy that guy in fantasy for sure. But man, that Titans defense was hot garbage. They should have won that game. What were they up? Were they up 14-0?
I'll give you the numbers. Yeah. It was 13-0, and then they put up 13 for the Giants in the third quarter, and then 8 in the fourth. Yeah, no, it's the AFC South is just full of giving up leads and jumping out to hot starts. This will be the hot and cold division. Yeah, it's crazy. So shout out to the Texans and Colts leading their own division. Maybe that's what they were saying. They're like, I don't think Tennessee's going to win today. Let's just, shake hands.
I saw this Chargers game from last year. I know what to do.
Rich Bisaccia's in the background. Like, that game will haunt me until the day that I'm dead. All the discourse around it, I still can't get over it. Yeah, but good on Brian DeBoll for getting the win.
It was all right.
Yeah, Titans have to be better than this. Derrick Henry has to be better moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Like he got 20 carries, didn't find the end zone, and he averaged almost 4 yards a carry. So that's good, but it's not
Right.
Derrick Henry. Like it's not what we're accustomed to.
I feel like it wasn't a great game script for him in the second half. Obviously, I feel like there are going to be better days for him. Honestly, I think the biggest issue I had was the receivers for the Giants.
Yep.
Like they got to figure this out. Like I thought Kadarius Toney and Wan'Dale Robinson were supposed to be it. Like they're going to be the top guys, and we're still seeing Sterling Shepard and Kenny Golladay doing nothing. I mean, Shepard had the big play for a touchdown, but like, come on, like 90% of the game you do nothing. You know what I mean? Like, it's super frustrating. They got to get Kadarius Toney more touches.
Yeah, the wide receiver room in New York right now is just essentially cardio, Planet Fitness for most of the game. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But man, for me, the Titans, I'm not alarmed. This is the floor of what we're probably going to see. It's nice that Tannehill didn't turn the ball over at all coming off of his last game in the playoffs. And I do expect Treylon Burks and Robert Woods both to have better days moving ahead, especially Robert Woods coming off that ACL. The more he plays, the better he's going to be. So Kyle Phillips is a surprise for sure. And Dontrell Hilliard is going to have a role in this offense, 6 for 61. But I expect this group of pass catchers to develop and become better as the season goes along. And speaking of the season going along, Bolt Gang or Don't Bang, Bolt Up, Ray, What Nation? This is my game. I circled this game as soon as the schedule came out, Justin. I cannot lie to you. And was I sweating by the end of the third quarter because holy shit, I was ready to be pissed. For me, this game was about the Chargers defense. The offense really stalled as soon as Keenan Allen went out. Lombardi got a little conservative in the second half. Derek Carr gave this game away, for lack of better terms, in my opinion. 3 picks is unacceptable, especially whenever you're playing a top 5
possession.
Yeah, the top 5 offense in terms of like efficiency last year. You cannot turn the ball over more than twice against this Chargers team and expect to win, especially with the defense that we're now seeing. But if you're looking at the overall game, it was pretty even. Rushing yards, the Chargers won out in terms of like everything besides efficiency, but it was not this blowout in terms of overall yards, passing yards, or rushing yards.
Right.
They were tied for first downs. The Chargers had one more third down conversion, but they played more third downs. The Raiders were 50% on fourth. The Chargers were 0 for 1. The Chargers ran more plays and held the ball for 5 more minutes. And they won the turnover battle with the interceptions, and they got to Derek Carr. The offensive line is the real deal in Los Angeles. I was a little nervous with just our right tackle, Fielder, playing in the place on the opposite side of Slater, but with Zion Johnson at the right guard, and then we have Pipkins next to Slater and Lindsley at center, they held up better than I could have expected. Chandler Jones and Max Crosby were held relatively as quiet as possible. Herbert took a couple hits here or there, especially on that slide, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise, getting the flag. But I cannot say enough about Justin Herbert. Some of the balls he throws make little sense to me. 3 touchdowns, 279. Eckler had a relatively quiet day. Joshua Kelly and Sony Michel were a nice compliment. Once Keenan went down, thank God DeAndre Carter signed in the offseason. I was pumped for him just due to the upside of our special teams and return units because Andre Roberts, for as good as he was in our stretch last year, he kind of led to the downfall in that Raiders game. We lost by a field goal in overtime. They scored a touchdown on that turnover off of that kickoff return. Not all of his fault, but we upgraded the return game. We have 2 wide receiver 3s, like a solid 3 in Palmer and a 3B in Carter, in my opinion. Gerald Everett was good in the game, scored a touchdown, 54 yards. I should have started him over Irv Smith in fantasy. Hindsight's 2020. But this Chargers team is built to contend now. And the thing about this team, it would be one thing if Williams, Keenan, and Palmer just eviscerated the Raiders secondary. But you have 6 players with over 3 receptions. Herbert spreads the ball, and that's what makes this team so damn difficult to guard. And I can get into the defensive numbers. Asante Samuel Jr. answered the call against Devontae Adams as best as one really can. Devontae had an amazing day. Drew Tranquil with a big pick. Kenneth Murray actually played pretty well in a way that I haven't seen over the last 2 years. and just the depth. The depth showed. And once J.C. Jackson is back, I'm going to get belligerent, Justin. That's all I have to say. I'm going to go feral on some of these weeks. But the Raiders
do it.
The Raiders played well. I'm not going to really. Okay. I'm not going to denounce them. I don't like their defense, and I think their problem is going to be they're going to get into shootouts. And the offense is great, but their defense is not going to be consistent enough, especially on the back end and the secondary, for them to compete with most of the teams in the AFC West on a week-to-week basis. So they could put up 25 a game, and you could have KC dropping 30 or the Chargers dropping 28, and it's just difficult.
So look what KC did this week. It was nuts. Yeah, I mean, Vegas, I think they'll be fine from like a fantasy perspective. I think all those guys are going to get theirs. Team-wise, yeah, they still, I mean, even with the upgraded offense, they didn't feel like they were a team that's, going to the Super Bowl. They're going to be more competitive probably than they were last year because they have better players. They got Devontae Adams. Hunter Renfrow, better weeks are coming. Darren Waller was kind of so-so. Josh Jacobs kind of, again, so-so. Was he 10 for 57, had a couple of catches?
Yeah, he had like
one catch. Yeah,
one catch, 16 yards. Yeah, 70 yards.
Those guys will get better. I'm actually, I mean, the Chargers won, but I'm kind of concerned about the Chargers. Like Keenan Allen's banged up. Yep. Mike Williams didn't play great in week 1. I'm expecting Eckler and Mike Williams to play much better in week 2, but
they have to.
Kind of disappointed from what I saw. I mean, Keenan was doing Keenan things before he left. He big 40-yard gain. So yeah, I mean that was really the biggest disappointment for me, other than Derek Carr throwing 3 interceptions and just kind of blowing it, because realistically, he cleans that up. He's got 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. They're winning this game. So
so it's gonna be a fun year. I'm still rolling the Chargers. I think this coming week is going to be interesting. I wish Keenan Allen would be playing. He's not going to play this week. There's just no way with the hamstring injury in a short week. So Mike Williams has to show up, but man, this back half of the slate has been really good aside from Cowboys Bucks, but we'll get into that. But speaking of AFC West quarterbacks, Mahomes heard the talk in the offseason, and he said Tyreek's cool, but I'm better. 44-21. The Cardinals played a decent game. 20 points on the Chiefs isn't a terrible thing to do, but we're getting back to this point because a big part of my evaluation of Kansas City last year was inconsistencies. We're going to see a more consistent Kansas City this year just based upon the offensive line unit and having that full year together. Mahomes is protected, and Travis Kelce's still there. And while they did get rid of Tyreek Hill, this assemblage of receivers is deeper than I think any unit he has had in the grand scheme of it. Missing Tyreek Hill's upside, sure, it sucks, but it's not like he is now without talent around him, because he most definitely is not. And if CEH is going to catch 2 touchdowns a week, I guess we're just going to chalk them up to playing the Super Bowl, because, man, they look good. I don't know if I'm
buying that to be a regular occurrence, but we'll see.
Not at all. No way. Isaiah Pacheco, though, 12 carries, 62 yards, and a touchdown. Everyone was saying
a lot of it was in garbage time. Yeah, okay, cool. Because they were up by a lot for most of the game, but Clyde Edwards was the guy. Yeah, he was the guy to start the game. Pacheco got some decent garbage time, which is nice. I think all of those guys are ownable in fantasy. McKinnon in the most deepest formats. Like, he didn't have a great day, but I think he still finished like just under 50 total yards. So I mean, pretty good for any running back. David Montgomery would have loved that production, especially as fantasy owners. Pacheco was able to finish with a touchdown. Whether you want to call it garbage time or not, it was at the end of the game. Whatever, they're up by a lot. Hey, value is value, right? The receivers loved what Juju, Kelsey were doing. MVS, I think, could have some pretty big weeks, some pretty random explosive weeks. So definitely look out for that. I mean, they could have had the same receiver group even with Tyreek Hill if they really wanted to. They could have just added MVS and Juju, but Tyreek's not there anymore, so you're not going to have those. I mean, I like how you were saying with the group being deeper, I see them more efficient because you don't have to take more risky throws downfield. Tyreek's gone. The average A dot's probably going to come down a little bit from all the targets they're going to go to Kelsey, between 9 to 12 receiving yards or, off the line of scrimmage.
Yep. And then the Cardinals, whenever Trace McSorley's playing in the game, things probably didn't go their way to the best of their abilities. I didn't expect the Cardinals to win this game. Still not a fan of Cliff Kingsbury in the highest degree. Kyler got his money. He threw 2 touchdowns, scampered around a bit. James Conner found the end zone. Good for your fantasy team. His yardage was not Just Greg Dortch being the leading receiver is not what you want to see for this offense.
Yeah,
And Marquise
hard
Brown,
pass.
yeah, it was just not their day. 21 points is commendable. This is a Kansas City unit. I'm just surprised their defense played so well with the departures of Tyrann Mathieu, and they lost Melvin Ingram after the postseason. So I just think adding who they got in their draft and even losing Charvarius Ward in the offseason, this defense came out and they played extremely well, especially with how quick the pace was for this offense. Just an overall great showing, and it's why Kansas City is probably the team to beat in the AFC West, if not all of the AFC, including Buffalo. And then we'll get to the final reaction, and then we're going to skate through the predictions. That way we don't keep you here too long, Justin. But Bucks versus Cowboys. I didn't get to watch this game. I was at the movie theaters, and looking at the score, I'm kind of glad I didn't see it because, man, it got ugly.
It was boring. I was doing a stream and watching it at the same time. I was like, man, I'm glad I have something to do right now because it was pretty brutal. One touchdown, a lot of field goals. Dak's hurt. I mean, there's so many questions for Dallas right now. Going to be missing Dak probably for at least the next 2 months. I don't think any of the quarterbacks there, the answer, maybe they can go after Garoppolo or, I don't know, anybody. Is Nick Mullins available again? I mean, he'd be just fine, versus any of the guys that they have there right now. So stock is down for the Cowboys. I mean, I don't know who they play next week, but it'd be cool for Cowboys fans if they go out and get a random win it for the Gipper type of game, but I don't think that's going to be the case. The Bucks were the Bucks. Chris Godwin looks like he re-injured himself. He's going to be missing some time. That's not ideal, but if you're a Bucks fan or a Julio Jones owner, probably pretty excited about that. Julio passed the eye test last night, so feeling good about him and Mike Evans and Leonard Fournette.
Yeah. Good game all around for the Pats. Or not the Pats, the Bucks. Sorry, Tom. I'm in my head at this point.
Tom team.
Yeah, the Bucks showed up in a way that I expected them to. This was not the Cowboys of last year in week 1. Mm-hmm. This is a Cowboys team that, like we said before the show, it's been 1 step forward and 2 steps back, but they haven't taken a step forward. Well, they haven't taken a step forward since Trayvon Diggs was in contention for Defensive Player of the Year in all of his picks. Micah Parsons is
week 6 of last year.
Yeah, it's like Dak going down is the kiss of death, and it's like it wasn't even a full 4 quarters. So rough start of the year for Dallas, but at least a high draft pick will be nice. They still have all their pieces after this year, so back to the drawing board, I guess. But speaking of the drawing board, Justin, we're gonna rapid fire these predictions. So Chargers Chiefs, how are we feeling?
I gotta go Chiefs.
Okay, I'm going to hear you, and I understand. But be the lightning bolt. So I'm going Chargers. I will not be surprised if the Chiefs do pull it out. They are playing in Arrowhead. The last time they did play in Arrowhead, Brandon Staley needed a wheelbarrow whenever he was leaving the stadium. Right. We'll see how it pans out. Patriots Steelers. This is a really interesting matchup. I don't know who to pick.
Who's the home team?
It's Steelers at home, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I'll go Steelers.
I'm going Steelers as well. The Pats just don't inspire me. I'm really scared about their upside offensively against any team that can pass the ball. Panthers Giants is next, playing in New York. Am I crazy to say the Giants win this game? I kind of think I am. I'm gonna go
Panthers. I'm gonna go Panthers bounce back game.
Yeah. Well, Wan'Dale Robinson is actually out. I'm pretty sure he got hurt last game. He's gonna be missing some time. Going
from slowing down Derrick Henry to slowing down CMC is going to be difficult. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, and then I think Baker and Tannehill are similar in terms of output you can see on a weekly basis. I think Tannehill has a higher upside with his legs. But arm-wise, yeah. And DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and Terrace Marshall probably project to be harder covers than what they had to do in Cleveland. Yeah, I'm going to roll with the Panthers. Dolphins, Ravens, I'm not thinking about it. I'm picking the Ravens. I know what happened last year. Brian Flores is gone, and Lamar Jackson is the guy. And I think Bateman.
Pure luck.
I think Bateman has a good week, and I think Andrews answers the call. I think the Ravens are set up pretty good to win this game.
That was their 7th win in a row, wasn't it?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, because they lost their first 7 and they won their next 7.
Yeah, it was insane. Colts, Jags. I'm going to pick the Colts. I will not be surprised if Trevor Lawrence sticks a big old middle finger up to the AFC South and says, I want to lead the division. But the Colts have to win this game. The Colts kind of have to win this game. I feel like it's the same story every year, Colts versus Titans. if you can't beat the teams in front of you in your division, you're not going to win the division. And the Colts constantly are just chasing the Titans. So they can't give up the ground. Bucks Saints. It's in New Orleans. I'm taking the Bucks.
I'm going to take the Saints.
Yeah.
Actually, take that back. I don't know if Alvin Kamara is playing. If Alvin Kamara is playing, I'll take the Saints. If he's not, I'm out, hard out.
I'm just going to pick the Bucks because the Saints have had the Bucks' number for a good while now. I just think Dennis Allen had a good first week as the head coach. They were playing the Falcons, and while the Cowboys were limited in the scope of who they had on the field, the Bucks took care of business, and it wasn't relatively close. Chris Godwin will be a week healthier. Julio Jones another week in the system, and hopefully Mike Evans is playing. Because I know he had like a hamstring issue at some point in the last game.
Well, Godwin's going to miss time, so like they dropped that today. Yeah, he's going to miss time. He re-injured himself. Yeah. So in that game where you have Mike Evans going up against Lattimore, which they just love to just hump each other up and down the field, and neither one of them gets stats. They just like are barking in each other's faces all up and down the sideline. All right, we're going to do it again. All right, we're going to do it again. I would be fading Mike Evans in week 2 because of that. And then you're just left with Julio and Lenny. So I felt like the Saints just kind of found themselves in the second half. They became more of a vertical offense rather than trying to just like feel out the game narrative, I guess. I don't know. So I'm gonna go to the Saints there.
Yeah, I'm putting a question mark next to the Bucks.
They only scored one touchdown against the Cowboys. Like, what the hell?
If Godwin's missing, I don't even care if Kamara misses the game. I like Mark Ingram enough, and I think Taysom Hill makes things weird. He always does. Michael Thomas is back, and I don't think – because if you want to think if it was just Michael Thomas and Marquez Callaway, but Olave and Landry presents an issue for this Bucs secondary. I'll take the Saints, especially at home. The defense still has the identity with Dennis Allen. Super fun matchup, probably one of my games of the week, Commanders versus the Lions. I'm taking the Lions. Any matchup where I feel like it's a toss-up between the two teams, I'm picking DeAndre Swift. Jared Goff is going to be the next Alex Smith. I saw somebody say it on TikTok. I forgot his name.
No, he's not.
But I'm like, he could fit the role. He's not the same caliber player, obviously.
Is he going to be the next Alex Smith because he's going to have his leg broken at FedEx this week? Are they playing that game in D.C.?
It's in Detroit by the grace of God.
Okay, so he's fine. He's fine then. He's fine
he'll be
because
okay.
only something like that would happen to Theismann and Alex Smith, and that only happens in DC on the anniversary of the others.
Yeah, no, thank you. I cannot. Nope. Leg injuries. Yeah, I'm taking the Lions. In a bloodbath, I'm taking the Niners over the Seahawks, and I don't think the Niners come out really too scathed. I just think
should be fine.
I think the Niners are going to try and make a statement with this game. I think the Seahawks could control the ball a bit with like Rashad Penny.
We still got to see the Seahawks play tonight, so we'll see what we get out of them. But from what I know about them, I feel like that will be a kind of like a first half close game. Second half, the Niners will figure it out.
Yeah, I just think after losing to the Bears in week 1, the Niners can't give up games in this division, even with how low I am on the Cardinals in terms of repeating success from last year in the grand scheme. And the Rams are a good team, but they are not what they were last season. This is the Niners division to lose as of right now in terms of overall talent. Give me the Niners. Falcons, Rams. The Rams have to win this game. If the Rams are at home and they blow a game to the Falcons, I will take 2 laps around my block, and that's 4 miles.
Do you know what the spread is?
No clue.
I'll take the Falcons to cover.
Well, for coverage, yeah, sure. The Falcons are going to probably play a competitive game, especially after what the Bills did to the Rams. But I'm taking the Rams to win. Falcons covering would make sense because they're not dead in the water. Mariota is a solid quarterback. But this feels like if the Niners need a win this week, the Rams are starving for a win.
The Rams are 10.5-point favorites. That is criminal. That's free money.
The Falcons are going to cover that.
10.5.
That's
week
insane.
2. Who do they think the Rams are? Who do they think they just saw play?
Cooper Kupp goes for 15 receptions, 300 yards, and
not on AJ Terrell. He doesn't.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly.
Come on,
that's what you're expecting would happen because Allen Robinson was still in the Chicago area code last time I checked with how he played last week.
The Rams are minus 550. You have to bet $550 to make 100 for you folks at home that don't know what that means. That's crazy. The Falcons are plus 430. Also, after the game that they just played, feels like a bit of an overreaction. They should have won that game.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Oh, by the way, the 49ers minus 400. So it's actually more likely that the Seahawks would beat the Niners than it would be the Falcons to beat the Rams. That's crazy.
That's crazy. That's crazy to me. Even with Elijah Mitchell gone, I think the Niners rushing attack doesn't miss too many steps. It might be a tick slower, but it's going to be efficient.
It's going to be fun.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of fun, this matchup should be high scoring, and I'm taking the Cardinals because Cliff Kingsbury in the first 8 weeks of the season is a pretty good head football coach. And I do not like Josh McDaniels. Never have, never will. It's my personal preference. So Cardinals, Raiders, I'm taking the Cardinals even though it's in Vegas. And I just want as much space between the Chargers and the Raiders as possible.
I'm going to take the Raiders. I don't think you can keep them down for too long here with that offense they have.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a shootout. I think Kyler, if the Cardinals do want to win, they need a healthy Zach Ertz, and James Conner has to do more. I think he has to get some yardage.
I feel like the Cardinals right now are kind of missing the shootout chess piece in Hopkins. Like I feel like they need that type of guy. Like Marquise Brown isn't a guy that you can, he's like bringing a knife to a gunfight. You're really going to need to want it to win. You know what I mean? Like, like Zach Ertz was okay. He found the end zone, but he wasn't 100% healthy. James Conner, he's someone that you would probably fill into that criteria. Nope. He didn't his efficiency wasn't good, but he did find the end zone. Darrell Williams was that guy last year. I don't even know if he was dressed. He didn't even touch the ball.
Benjamin played over him this week.
Ew.
If Rondale Moore plays, I think the Cardinals have a way better shot just because I think he's an explosive talent. I'm taking the Cardinals because I can't pick the Raiders this week. I'm just trying to.
Rock Ya-Sin is like licking his chops at that Rondale Moore matchup versus what he was dealing with last week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, even when Mike Williams wasn't, making plays, Rock Ya-Sin still had to worry about him. You know what I mean? Like he still had a lot to do.
Yeah. This week's matchup for them is a must win either way. They're both in competitive divisions. And if you're starting out 0-2, your playoff hopes are looking very difficult. Speaking of playoff hopes, Houston, we have a problem. Texans versus Broncos. I'm taking the Broncos.
Yeah.
After tonight's game, maybe I might change my mind. I don't think I will.
I doubt that you will.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think the Broncos are going to be efficient on offense, and that defense is really good. And I think Davis Mills is probably going to have one of his less good games of the year against this Broncos defense. He should be passable, but I don't expect the output we got against the Colts because the Broncos are the real deal on defense. Bengals, Cowboys, not even going to waste my breath. You know where I'm going. The Bengals are going to win this game. It's Cooper Rush versus Joe Burrow. Even if T. Higgins doesn't play.
We don't know who the quarterback will be. For all we know, they'll roll out Ben DiNucci on Saturday night. Yeah, I mean.
Stephen Jones is more likely to play than Dak Prescott this coming week. So it's like, you can't pick the Cowboys unless they're playing a CFL team, and I'm still taking the CFL. It's bleak. It's not good in Dallas. Justin, I'll let you take lead on this next matchup. Bears Packers. Who are you taking?
Bears. I mean, I'm picking the Bears. I mean, I picked the Bears to win this week. Unfortunately, I had it parlayed with Detroit winning because I thought I was a hot shot. So I lost that massive parlay by 3 points. That sucks. But yeah, I'm going to be taking the Bears. I mean, they played very good disciplined football this week. They were a team that got better as the game went on with pretty much all the odds against them. The weather, the field conditions, the other team was just better than them. I don't care what anybody says. The 49ers are better than the Bears on paper. They have more playmakers. Deebo Samuel, their best receiver, he found the end zone. He was able to catch the ball. Our best receiver, he had one catch for 8 yards. Okay? They were able to figure it out. Packers are struggling. I think we can figure it out on the road.
I appreciate the confidence, and I think the Bears are going to make this a competitive game. The Packers starting 0-2 in the year of our Lord 2022 with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback is just the Bears are going to cover. I'd be surprised if the Bears didn't cover.
10 point cover. 10.
I'm taking the Packers to win. The Bears are going to cover it, but I'm taking the Packers to win. I just think even with the ragtag bunch of wide receivers, I think Lazard hopefully plays, and Aaron can't start 0-2 in this division and hope for winning it because I think the Vikings are going to come out pretty hot.
Mm-hmm.
So the Packers definitely need to start putting feet in front of the other, because if they're 0-2 and the Bears are 1-1, I know it's a long season, but there's not really anybody else in the pipe coming through to help this team on offense. The defense is there and it's ready.
Well,
but,
I think Kmet and Mooney will be. Yeah, they're going to be better in week 2. Like they're going to be better this week.
As long as it's not raining in Green Bay, it should be leagues better.
Right. So I selected these last couple ones that we had gone over, like the Bengals and the Bears and the Falcons. My sports book won't even let me put those 3 picks together. They will not let me put together Falcons plus 10.5, Bengals -7, and the Bears plus 10. They're like, nope, that's gonna hit. Don't you even try it.
It's my infinite money glitch.
Yeah,
man.
That's wild to me. That's wild.
Crazy.
They're laying some big lines here. Yeah, the Bears are going to cover 10. Good teams win. Great teams cover, man. Go Bears.
Precisely. Bills, Titans. After what we saw out of the Titans last week, I think the Bills are going to beat them. The Bills are going to beat them. By how much? We'll find out. Would I be surprised if it was by more than 2 scores? Not in the slightest. The Bills
9.5
defense.
point spread. I
don't know if the Titans cover that, because the Bills offense is electric and that defense is intense. Derrick Henry's a bad man, but Von Miller's scary this season. So, yeah, Bills, not a question. Vikings, Eagles. This is probably one of the better Monday night matchups to start off the year. Like Broncos,
we have 2 this week, apparently. Oh, we do? The Titans and Bills also play on Monday night.
Woohoo! Oh, cool. Well,
double football.
Vikings, Eagles feels like the more high-profile game. I feel like it'll be closer, and I feel like it'll be probably more entertaining. Sure. I've got the Vikings. I think I'm going to trust Kevin O'Connell's offense against Nick Sirianni's. I think the Vikings can air it. I think the Vikings are going to outpace the Eagles. The Eagles' defense could probably slow down Minnesota, but if the Packers got eviscerated last week, they're going to have a tough time. Justin Jefferson. Yeah.
Yeah, if they couldn't shut down the Lions, you're telling me they're going to slow down Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook? Nah.
Yeah, that's fair. A.J. Brown should have a big week, but outside of him, I think Miles Sanders has a down week. I don't expect 4 touchdowns on the ground against the Vikings, and I think Kevin O'Connell is going to be the upstart coach in the NFC North.
Seems that's the case.
Aside from the Bears' new guy, he's the talk of the town as of right now.
Eberflus is an old school dude, man. I mean, like when I mentioned earlier about I don't remember what team you're referencing, but their culture getting better. That's how the Bears got better. They got better by subtracting Matt Nagy, who was a cancer to the culture. He just was. He did not have anything right, whether it was player relationships, whether it was play calling. I mean, I think the coolest thing he probably did was Dub Club. Let's play some music and turn off the lights after wins, boys. That's it. I mean, that was it. I mean, every player just progressively, turned on him. So we got a lot better with Eberflus, the type of culture that he brought in, and realistically, just the deceptive play calling. Like they're not going to line it up and just show you what they're going to do. Like they're going to make you guess. They're going to try to confuse you. So people are way too low on the Bears this year. They're going to surprise some folks.
100%. And that's this week's predictions. Before I let everybody go, I need to enlighten the world on Austin's picks because he is not here. He's not gone or forgotten, but he will be back eventually. Yeah,
money line.
Week 2 picks. He's got Chargers, Browns, Lions, Saints, Panthers, Patriots, Colts, Ravens, Rams, Niners, Bengals, Broncos, Cardinals, Packers, Bills, Vikings.
You ran through that too fast to pick on.
That's fair. So he didn't pick his own team. So this is about as objective as he's going to get. And he was actually at AT&T Stadium today. So didn't let the emotions get to him. Good on you, Austin. We miss you, buddy, and we hope to see you next week. But Justin, I got to thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure having you.
Yes, sir.
Feel free to plug anything that's new, anything you got going.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at TITTHJB. I work for SGPN, Sports Gambling Podcast Network, as their fantasy football and NFL betting editor. So come check us out on Twitter at SGPN Fantasy. We've got weekly cheat sheets and fantasy guides and betting guides for you. Pretty much what you need if you're an NFL degenerate, whether you're gambling or whether you're playing fantasy. We've got everything you need.
Okay, well, Justin, it's been a pleasure as always. Always happy to have you on. I'm sure we're going to look to have you on again in the near future. But as always, from all of us here at the Makeshift Managers, and from Justin and myself, we thank you guys for tuning in, whether it be through the live stream or through Spotify. And I'll leave you with the one word. So until next time, guys, peace.